Hey, Scott Russell, I watched this video today, which you're looking at, and it was pretty moving. And I've shared other videos about a lot of homelessness around the US. And I want to tell a little story. When I was in the US at one time, I drove a motorhome down to Pensacola, Florida, and it was an old motorhome. And just out walking one day, and a man on a roof called out to me on a commercial roof, just said some passing conversation. I remember climbing the ladder and talking to the man, and through the course of things, he was an alcoholic and used to, walk with God, and really felt condemned, and he'd gone away from that and was living pretty condemned. And I just remember praying with that man, and his life just got turned upside down in a good way, back to normal. And I was at his home, ended up bringing the motor home to his home. Long story short, from that, he raced up to Evansville, Indiana, grabbed a revival tent, and he brought it back down to Pensacola, and we set it up a mile away from a big church down there that had a supposed revival of sorts, right? And it was just there to serve. And I remember parking there and in the motorhome, and a lot of homelessness, a lot of people living in the trees around there. Not a very comfortable environment. And I'm saying all that to give you a little bit of background, but there was a man that, when I first got there, was very aggressive. He'd had churches, I guess, jam things on him that weren't welcome. I remember him getting in my face and going off at me, "You're a this, you're a that," and I just said, "Mate, Jesus loves you." And he stops and he goes, "Well, I can't understand it. Nothing upsets you." And I said, "Well, you can't hurt a dead man," which he didn't understand, and many of you may not either. But I'd surrendered my life and to serve a greater call. And anyway, over the course of time, Steve would come closer and closer to the tent, and he'd sit on his cooler or esky outside the tent and listen. And one day there was this lady that was sharing, it was a prostitute, an ex-prostitute, and she was sharing about how her life had changed, and he just cried out, like, "What do I have to do? Help me." And the man next to him gave him a punch in the head, actually a kick in the head for speaking, and it was kind of the environment it was, right? And when things calmed down, I got talking with Steve, and he was just like, I've just had enough. What can I do to change? And long story short, he found Jesus. He found life, not religion. He found a love, and a religion of love. And I just remember he packed up, and I organised a ride for him home, and he hadn't seen his family in I don't know how long. Yeah, it was a long time. And he just said, "I got to go home. I've got to go back to my family." And it was just so refreshing to see that state of mind had changed. So many stories there. Astrid, another young lady that they would panhandle, get money, and then spend a weekend on crack in a hotel. And I remember talking to her and just saying to her, you know Jesus loves you. And her whole world stopped. She never knew she was loved. She came from a wealthy family, very wealthy family. She told me she'd left and was living on the street. I don't care how much money you've got. Life can run you over. And the guy with Lane, I remember talking to Lane. I didn't take up offerings in these meetings, but somebody had left, I don't know, $5 or something. And I remember giving that $5 to one of the homeless guys, Lane, and he was just blown away because he was pretty hostile to us. And I told him, "You're going to preach the gospel one day." And he started crying. He says, "My grandma told me the same thing." And every one of these people have lives. Every one of these people have people that love them and care for them, and they may not think that, but there is. And as I watched that, I was moved. I remember one day a knock on my camper door, and there was a man there with a handful of cash who wanted nothing to do with our what we were at first, and he saw we were genuine because one night somebody bought us a pizza because we didn't have what we needed to to get something, and the man didn't know, and he just, they bought us a pizza. He just, "I want to buy you dinner," and he bought dinner, and the homeless man heard it. And the homeless man, people are like that. They can read people, whether you're fake or real. So he saw that somebody had bought us dinner. He said, I'm gonna get dinner for these guys tomorrow night. Anyway, he turns up at our camp with a handful of coins. He panhandled, got his needs for the day, and he wanted to give us money, and it was very moving, very moving. And I saw people's lives completely transformed. I remember the eldest son from this church that was up the road, this Pensacola church that had had some revival, and his son was living in the trees, and that can happen. So I don't want to condemn the man. I don't know the situation, but the son came to me in one of the meetings that was being touched, and he said, "My dad told me I should stay away from this place because basically we don't believe the same as them, and so we're of the devil." And he kept coming. And that's religion, isn't it? It's such a death, organized religion. It's such death. If you don't look like us, think like us, move like us, we'll destroy you. But as we just parked there and loved people, and what greater gift is there in life? What higher calling can there be? But I wanted to say when you watch these videos, there is hope. We all look and go, "Dear God, what can we do for these people?" And we all want to do something for these people. But I tell you, there is hope, and the only hope is divine. The only hope is when they start to see that they are loved, that God cares for them. Because then that starts to give them a self-love, a self-dignity, a self-worth. All of a sudden they realize that no matter what's happened in life, they have value. And then you start to live like you have value. I am moved by these people, but I'm also moved by the fact that I know there is going to be a move of the Spirit of God on those streets in the USA. How do I go back to a normal life? How do I go back to living 10 minutes in the transit lounge if you've watched that video? How do you do that when you see the mass despair of civilization of people? You have to. Anyone with a heart has to be altered by that. And I believe when God puts his hand on you with a higher calling, it's not about you. It's about the people he sends you to. And some of you watching this video, God's hand has been on you, and it's time to redig those old wells. It's time to let God renew you, not organized religion. That you have value, you are important, and you can make a difference. So step up, and just let God flow through you. Let his love shine through you. We are going to change this world with that love, because love conquers all. So as I watch these videos, I know there's hope. I've lived it. I've seen them leave the street. And I know it. God bless you.